Welcome, teachers, to this Teacher Mindset Matters live series. I'm so happy you are here because today we are going to talk about something that affects more of us than we actually realize, and it's burnout. But this isn't going to be your typical burnout chat, and we are not going to talk about these long to-do lists and overpacked schedules. We are going to go much deeper because burnout doesn't actually start in your calendar, burnout begins in your mind. So, again, burnout begins in your mind. It's in the beliefs you carry, in the automatic thoughts you keep having, and in the internal pressure you put on yourself to be everything, to do everything, and just to hold it all together. And that's where today's sessions begins. But just to warn you, before we start, I'm actually not live with you right now. I just decided to pre-record this session so that you have some content for today on this topic. And the reason why I decided to do so is because I'm actually following my own advice right now. I'm on a holiday at the moment, and the reason why I'm doing it, it's because I've heard this from one teacher before, where they were sharing that I have a regular holiday every other month, so that I am always energized, I am rested, and I serve my students the best possible way I can. And I just felt like, wow, this is so smart. Because when we just try to go on holiday because we have a burnout, then that's already too late, right? But when we go on a holiday and take some time for ourselves to recharge, to review, and to reflect before this actual burnout even starts, or when our thoughts start uh, kind of resembling the process of burnout, then is the right time to take a holiday. And this is the reason, again, I am on holiday right now. And I am potentially somewhere in Croatia at the moment, or maybe in Corfu, enjoying my holiday, enjoying my holiday with my friends by the beach. But what I would like to ask you to do is to really participate in this session as if I was with you right now in a live setting. And whatever comments you're going to make or questions that you are going to have, I would love to answer all of them personally when I'm back from my holiday. And I would just be able to reconnect with you and also share with you any personal anecdotes from my own traveling, and also with your own personal anecdotes and your experience with burnout, because I'm very interested in how you're dealing with burnout and what are the steps you are taking before this actual burnout even starts, or maybe during the burnout, or maybe even after the burnout. Is there any prevention tools and steps that you're taking? And what I decided to do is to actually split this session into 3 sections. And I'm going to spend a few minutes on each of these sections. So the sections of my live session for today is number 1, recognizing the mental signs of burnout. Number 2, meet the saboteurs behind burnout. And the number 3 is actually tools or mindset shifts from saboteur to sage to prevent your burnout or potential burnout. So, the very first section, as I mentioned, is recognizing the mental signs of burnout. Now, let's start with what I call the early mental signs of burnout. These are actually the thoughts that quietly build up, and it's way before our body feels tired or emotions feel flat. Now, ask yourself honestly at this moment, have you been thinking, I can't afford to slow down? Or do you sometimes feel guilty when you take a break? Or even, do you constantly wonder if you're doing enough for your students? These are red flags, but most teachers don't see them that way. We, and I say we because I'm a teacher myself, often wear them like these badges of honor, like how honored I am to over deliver, to overserve, even if it's at the expense of my own needs. So here is your first key insight that I want you to think about, and that's burnout doesn't ask for permission, it builds in silence. Okay, so again, burnout doesn't ask for permission, it builds in silence. Now, when I mention the word silence, I don't really mean necessarily external silence. Sorry, I don't necessarily mean internal silence. I mean more like you don't really know the signs externally, but you already know your mind is on fire or there are things happening in your mind, because your mind never actually rests, it's never resting. And this is where the burnout starts. So that's why noticing these thought patterns is so powerful. And if you can catch them early, then you can interrupt this spiral. And then this leads us to the next part, which is understanding where these thoughts are coming from. But let me know if you have any questions at this point about the first point, or first section, which is about recognizing the mental signs of burnout. Are there any questions at this point? So I'm happily moving now to the second section, which is about where do these thoughts come from? They are not random, okay? So these thoughts that you have, they are not random. They are often driven by what we call saboteurs. And if you've been to my previous sessions, I've already spoken about saboteurs many times and what they are. So just to repeat it again, saboteurs are these internal voices or patterns that may sound like they are helping you, but they are actually draining you. And very important thing that I already mentioned quite a few times is that the saboteurs are these self-coping mechanisms that were actually helping us in our childhood to help us keep safe, loved, protected, and accepted as children. But now they are not helpful anymore. They often fuel actually burnout. And let me introduce you to the 10 saboteurs and how each of them contributes to burnout. So, the judge, this is the master saboteur, and the judge saboteur is saying, you are not doing enough or you are not good enough. It actually judges you. It judges others, like your students' parents, your other teachers, and also it judges circumstances. And this constantly fuels guilt, frustration, and pressure, which then leads to burnout. Now, the second one is the pleaser saboteur. And this says something like, say yes, be helpful, don't let anyone down. Okay, so just saying yes to everyone, just not to let anyone down. And this is at the expense of, but what would please me? What would make me happy? Or what would make me feel like I'm taken care of? And you become this go-to person even when you are depleted, even when you should be taking care of yourself and actually go on holiday or just take a day off or just take an hour off every day or just a few minutes off just to enjoy your favorite drink or something else. So the pleaser saboteur leads to a burnout in this way when it says yes, be helpful, don't let anyone down. Now the next saboteur is the hyper achiever. And this one says something like, your worth depends on what you achieve. And then, actually, even the rest feels like failure, because if you're not achieving anything or the outcome, the goals that you set for yourself, it feels like a failure. So then you keep pushing beyond your limits just to achieve more, because achieving more means that you're more successful. That's what the hyperachiever makes you think that way. Whereas the opposite is true, right? So you can set a goal, but then you're supposed to enjoy the journey and just be present with the journey, have fun and flow as you are achieving the things towards your goal and just to enjoy the process. So this was the hyperachiever saboteur and how this is leading to a burnout. The next one is the controller. So the controller saboteur says you have to manage everything. You carry more than you should, and letting go feels unsafe. So this often means, like, let's say you keep reminding your students to do something, and you even sometimes do the homework instead of them. And you sometimes even feel like you want their success more than they want it themselves. And then you try to control everything just to make them achieve what you think is the best for them to be achieved. So it's literally controlling everything. And that's very tiring. That's exhausting. Of course, it leads to a burnout. And I can really connect to this one because, as I mentioned at the very beginning, I decided to take this regular holiday from now on because I had a massive burnout just last year around this time. And the controller saboteur and actually the hyperachiever saboteur were two most common saboteurs or the thought patterns I had that led me to a burnout when I was feeling like because my clients are not achieving what I think they should be achieving, it means I'm a failure or I should do more, I should work more, I should kind of manage them more or even micromanage them more. So I know this well, everything too well myself, as I experience it myself with these top two saboteurs. The next saboteur is the stickler. And this one says it must be perfect. And then you micromanage, you overwork, and you become your own worst critic. And then this leads to a burnout, right? Because nothing is ever good enough. Everything needs to be perfect. And that shouldn't be the case, right? Because what we can just do is just to do things which are good enough. And maybe there are some things which need to be even more than good enough. But in most cases, just good enough lesson, good enough post on social media, or good enough presentation deck or slide deck is good. Now, the next saboteur is the avoider saboteur, which says, let's not deal with discomfort right now. So you suppress stress and avoid conflict until it builds up and overwhelms you. So then there is a lot of things that we need to deal with, and then it leads to a burnout because it feels like, oh, this is too much. I can't deal with all of that. But just because it's built up, as the avoider saboteur makes you um, procrastinate on certain things, conversations, or decisions. Uh, Now, the next one is the victim saboteur. And this one says, nothing I do will ever be enough. Or why does this always happen to me? Okay, so why do all the students kind of are disruptive in my class? Or why don't they just do their homework? Or why am I just paid this little? Or anything else? And then you feel unappreciated, resentful, and emotionally drained. Just kind of like being so emotionally like negative and just seeing all the things in a negative way around you. Now, the restless saboteur, which is the next one, says, what's next? Or what's new? I want to do something else. I feel like I'm not doing enough. I can do another program, another thing. And then you're constantly chasing the next idea, but never truly satisfied or rested. And that leads to a burnout as well, because you don't feel that whatever you're focusing on right now is actually good enough. Is this fear of missing out, which leads to a burnout, because then if we commit to too many things and say yes to too many things at the same time, of course, it's difficult to manage that. And the next one is actually the hyper rational saboteur, which says, just keep emotions out of this. Mhm. And then you disconnect from others and even from yourself. Because if you're not emotionally connected to yourself, to others, then it becomes a real burnout, because you as a human being is not just your thoughts, your rational mind, but is your emotional mind as well. And then what it means, you as a holistic person, right? We need to feel our emotions, and then we can think our thoughts, but we need to be connected to what we feel as well. And the last one, so last but not least, is the hypervigilant. And this one says something is going to go wrong. Is It's always this kind of like fear that something may go wrong. And then you are in a constant state of anxiety. So waiting for the next problem. Maybe another student is not going to show up in the class, or maybe there will be another negative comment under my LinkedIn post, or maybe, oh, I'm going to attract another client who is not going to pay me enough, or somebody else who will criticize my work, my supervisor, or another teacher. So it's this kind of like fear, something is going to go wrong. And now I want you to just take a moment to pause and reflect. So, which one sounds familiar out of all those saboteurs that I've just mentioned? Which one might be running your day? Or maybe just today, which one has been running your day today? Any of those thoughts sound familiar? Now, the good news is these saboteurs are not who you are, it's not your personality. So, you are not your saboteurs. They are just habits of the mind that used to work when you were a child and they were there in place, but they are not helpful anymore. And habits, they can be changed. As we know, we can create new habits or develop new habits. We can tweak some existing habits or adjust them, or we can completely remove and stop following some habits. So we can just change these habits. This is the good news. But the first step, as I mentioned, is just to be aware of them. And now I've just guided you through these 10 saboteurs and how they are contributing to burnout. So this was the second section. Now in the third section, we are going to actually share some mindset shifts for you to prevent burnout. So this will be the mindset shift to move from the saboteur mode to the sage mode. The saboteur mode is this inner negative voice that you have, which is affecting your performance, relationships, and well-being. And we want to shift it to the sage voice, to the sage mode, which means the grounded you, the wiser you, the balanced you that is there and actually that is having the strengths that you naturally have and you were born with, but the saboteurs overused these strengths. And then those strengths, previous strengths, were or are your weaknesses, because if a strength is overused, it's become a weakness, it becomes an obstacle, and then this obstacle, which is a saboteur, leads to a burnout. So in this part, we are going to see how we can shift from the saboteur to sage to prevent burnout. So what do we do when we recognize a saboteur is present? Sometimes we don't need to know the name of the saboteur, but if you feel negative about something, okay, if you have this negative feeling in your body, what is the next step? What do you do with that? So we shift from saboteur mode to sage mode. Again, that's the part of you that is calm, clear, grounded, or wise. And the sage is the version of you that knows how to take care without overextending and without having a burnout. And now these are the three simple steps. This is the 3-step process I teach teachers to follow if they want to prevent a burnout. So the very first step is to spot the saboteur. So say it out loud in your mind. That's my hyperachiever again, or that's my pleaser again, or that's my victim again. Now, naming it helps you create space and distance, which means I'm not my saboteur, but I recognize that my saboteur is having these thoughts, which potentially may lead to a burnout. So it's just to spot the saboteur. The second step is to pause and do a PQ rep. Now, PQ rep is this mental fitness exercise where your primary attention goes to one of your physical sensations. It can be touch, smell, taste, vision, or smell. And by just you focusing on this physical sensation means you are present. And when we are present, we can't be in a negative thought because we are present. So that's how we disrupt this autopilot, this thought pattern. And this is how we can actually become, or yes, stay in command. This is how we can prevent the burnout because we are in command, not our saboteurs, which are starting these negative thoughts, which lead to burnout. Now, I would like to now guide you through an example just to show how you can practice the speaker rep. So imagine right now that I'm going to give you an example. There is a student of yours who didn't pass the exam. Okay, you were preparing them for an exam and they didn't pass the exam. Now the hyperachiever voice could say something like, "You failed right now. You didn't help the client achieve the outcome, so you're not a good teacher." So this is a negative voice. Okay, so the first step is just to spot that voice. Okay, the hyperachiever is saying I'm not good enough and I failed as a teacher. Just to name it and separate yourself from it. Now the second step is to do the speaky rep, the mental fitness exercise. So what you can do is just to maybe take an object. I don't know, it can be a phone that you have next to you, and you can just be looking at the phone and become present to what you can see without being distracted, without judging, without just criticizing yourself or anything, and without analyzing things too much. You just observe the object which is in front of you, maybe the color of the object, the textile, and you can even touch it and slide your fingers or rub your fingers against that object. So feel the texture. Then you can zoom in on one particular part of that object, and then you can zoom out. And just become present. And when the thoughts are coming and trying to distract you, or just when your mind is trying to get you away from this present moment, just gently bring it back. And take a deep breath and breathe out. So this was just a short PQ rep mental fitness exercise that we practice. When you become present after you spot the saboteur, which is a sign of you energizing the sage brain, which is the calmer part of you, and it's also just showing that I'm in command here. I want to disrupt this negative thought. So I'm not letting this thought leading me to a burnout. Okay, so that was the second step. Now the third step would be so each saboteur has a different sage step for you to follow. And we already shared it in the previous recordings if you just want to watch some of my previous recordings, where I share all these 10 saboteurs and what sage steps you can take to shift from the saboteur mode to the sage mode. So I could go through all of them, but today I would like to just ask one universal question that could potentially apply to all the saboteurs. Okay, and this way, this is how you're going to be interrupting these thought patterns when they are negative and when they are about to lead to a burnout. So the question you can ask yourself to shift from saboteur to sage is that, what's the kindest thing I could do for myself right now? Okay, so what's the kindest thing I could do for myself right now to be in this sage mode, to be balanced and grounded? What is it? Is it a walk you can take, a drink that you can drink right now, a conversation you can have with someone, maybe a coach you can work with, maybe a series to watch, maybe something to buy, maybe just have a mindful meal right now, maybe taking a nap, or maybe booking a holiday and come and see me in Corfu. What is it? The second question you can ask yourself, what would I say to a student or a colleague who felt this way? What would you say to a student or to a colleague, another teacher, who felt like this? And the third question I would like you to ask yourself is, what's a wiser way to move forward from here, from these thoughts that I'm having right now? What's a wiser way to move forward? Now, I want you to ask yourself these questions because it's really that these micro shifts matter. and they protect your peace. They reconnect you with your purpose as a teacher. And because you don't have to burn out to make a difference. As teachers, we want to make impact, right? But we don't have to burn out to make that impact, because then we are not good role models for our students to follow, right? So these are the three steps that I wanted to share with you. And right now, I just would like to actually summarize everything for you. So burnout begins in the mind, and those early thoughts and mental patterns are the silent creators of stress. Okay, saboteurs like the pleaser, hyperachiever, and controller quietly drain your energy and keep you stuck in a cycle of pressure and overwork. And it's so important to be aware of this. But you have the power to shift from saboteur to sage by just using simple tools like mindfulness techniques. This was the pick your reps I was sharing with you, the mental fitness exercise, where you focus on one physical sensation to become present, and then the self compassionate questions I made you ask yourself when you are in this kind of situation. So now it's your turn. I want you to make a commitment right now to interrupt the burnout cycle before it takes hold. So you don't have to wait for exhaustion to force you into change. And this is the next step I would like you to follow and start following from today. So, number one is spot your saboteur, this inner negative voice that is in your mind. Then pause and do the quick PQ rep mental fitness exercise to be in command, to energize your sage brain. And then shift to sage from saboteur by asking yourself these questions. What's the kindest thing I can do to myself right now? Or even, what would I say to a student who felt this way? Or what's a wiser way to move forward? Okay, so that's how you begin changing the story and actually preventing yourself from experiencing a burnout. I hope you really enjoyed this session, and let me please know if you have any questions about anything I've just mentioned right now. And again, as I said to you, I'm going to respond to your questions when I'm back from my holiday in Greece. And I really wish you many balanced and energizing days in your teaching as a teacher. And just follow these three steps if you feel like a burnout is starting, so then you can catch it very early on and it doesn't even happen in the end. As a teacher to teacher, I wish all of this to you. And thank you so much for being here. I'm going to see you again in 2 weeks as we are having these teacher mindset matters live sessions every other week. And just to remind you, actually, I'm going to share my screen of other events that we have at the moment. So you should be able to see my screen right now. And here, as you can see, on the on the on this, let me just make it actually bigger so that you can see it even better. So here are all the events that you can be part of, and or you can even watch actually the previous recordings, like Teacher Success Online Summit, and all the other recordings. If you just move down, and this is all related to teachers, so you will find a lot of help here. And then always here at the top, you will see the current events that we have. So for example, Teacher Mindset Matters, it's every other week. So if you just click here and you register here, then you're going to be able to sign up for these events and you will have automatic calendar invitations. Good. I'm going to share this with you so that you can look it up and enjoy. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm going to see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good day. Bye bye.